Hey, Brian. It's been okay. Yeah, the community really did a good job too. Oh, I've got it.
One more.
I made them give me like the whole past history because it wasn't written there.
Yeah.
I was like, did we approve this? What is this? I was like, oh, and then now I've been so fixated on that. I'm like, well, what else did we? What else is on the docket? I don't even know.
I'd like to call to order the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board here on November 20th. With our secretary, please call the roll.
President Forney, we should close the other meeting
Oh, sorry.
first.
Yeah,
Always
I'd
do
like to
that.
make a motion
Thank you.
to reopen our meeting after the closed session.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. And I now hereby adjourn the committee of the whole and move then over to our Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board here in November, the full meeting on November 20th. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Alper.
Present.
Commissioner Musich.
Present.
Commissioner Menz.
Present.
Commissioner Olson.
Here.
Commissioner Rucker.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Thompson.
Here.
Vice President Abeni.
Present.
President Forney.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I will take an approval of our agenda.
So moved?
All those in favor, please, no, I need a
Second.
second. Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. On to approval of our minutes of November 6th, 2024.
I will move the minutes of November 6, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay. Any reports of appointees to outside boards, commissions, and committees? Commissioner Menz.
Yes, a couple of us attended the St. Anthony Falls Heritage Board, including President Forney and Commissioner Schaefer and myself. I thought it was a great meeting to reexamine sort of the purpose of the organization. So we got into work groups and just kind of evaluating what and how that organization is structured moving forward as there's so many projects going on. So that organization meets about 3 times a year, and there was talks of how that might change, who the makeup might change. We'll see how that goes, but it feels like the organization is trying to move into a little bit more defined space, and because it's been around for 30 years, and sometimes it's unclear as to what the purpose is or how they're working with the multiple government entities that are involved. So, and Commissioner Schaefer and President Forney can also contribute, but it was a great meeting.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Not seeing any other lights, I'll take a motion then for our consent business.
I'd like to move the consent agenda as a slate.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Schaefer, sorry.
I would like to just briefly pull Resolution 2024-221.
221, okay, all right. With that, all those
Do
in
we
fa-
want to discuss that one and then just vote on the whole slate? But, point of order.
Okay.
Would we like to do that since it's just one thing, or it's your call as president or chair?
We can pull it for discussion. Why don't we vote on the consent agenda first?
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of the consent agenda, minus 2024-2221, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay, on to Resolution 2024-221. If you'd like to read that, Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, I would like to just move Resolution 2024-221. Resolution accepting the $95,533 donation from the Friends of the Wildflower Garden for new and improved fencing at Eloise Butler Wildflower Garden and Bird Sanctuary in Theodore Wirth Regional Park. I just wanted to take.
Second?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay,
Thank you.
would you like to be?
Thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
I just wanted to say publicly thank you to the Friends Group for providing that funding. It's expanding the interior of the garden by about an acre, and it's going to prevent deer from roaming in the interior and eating plants that are so precious. So thank you to the Friends Group for their support and donation.
Great. Not seeing any other lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Okay, on to Admin and Finance.
On behalf of the Administration and Finance Committee, I
I'll move resolution 2024-212. Resolution approving a memorandum of understanding amongst the cities of Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, the city of St. Paul, the city of St. Louis Park, the city of Hopkins, and the regions of the University of Minnesota to solicit and procure vendors capable of providing shared mobility within all parties' respective jurisdictional, boundaries.
Second?
Great. Any discussion? Any discussion? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That action carries. Well, we're just blazing along. So here we are. We're going to be having a discussion regarding the superintendent's recommended 2025-26 budget. Does anybody want to discuss it? Have any questions?
Here comes Ms.
Oh,
Director
sorry.
Wiseman.
Director Wiseman. Welcome.
Good evening, President Forney and Commissioners. I just would like to say that the latest set of Commissioner questions and attachments are available on the public website, www.minneapolisparks.org/budget. The final round of questions from the Commissioners are due to the Superintendent by Monday, November 25th, and that is due to the holiday weekend. We want to be able to work through them prior to the weekend to get them back to you before the December 4th meeting. And then Commissioner amendments will be considered during the Administration and Finance Committee on December 4th. Amendments are due to the Board Secretary no later than noon on December 3rd. If you wish to have the amendment posted along with the agenda, we ask that you submit your amendments to the Board Secretary again by Monday, November 25th, due to the holiday weekend, so that we have time to get it processed and into the agenda posting. And I'll open it up to any questions.
Commissioner Alper.
Thanks. Just a procedural question. So if we submit it by Monday, November 25th, and it goes out with the packet, does that mean the amendments are automatically on the agenda, or do they need to be, does there need to be a vote to include them?
President Forney, Commissioner Elper, in this particular case, you're putting forward an amendment to a resolution. The resolution would actually be the approval of the budget. So those amendments will be listed underneath the resolution, and then you'll have to move it in the meeting. But you don't have to take an action to add them as an amendment to the resolution.
Thanks for that. And just one follow-up, if I may. So, and who will be on the Admin and Finance Committee that night? Just the regular crew or all of us?
I, the president, would appoint all of us commissioners to the admin and finance at the beginning of the meeting. Excuse me? Oh, so all commissioners can submit amendments during that meeting. That clear? Great. Any questions people have? Oh, Commissioner Menz, thank you.
Yeah, I'm hoping more people have some questions. I have a question about process as well. So you putting people on, the president putting all the members on the Admin and Finance Committee, is that a tradition or it's not a requirement? Does it, Council Rice, do you know how long that tradition has been in place?
Oh, please, Councilor
Madam
Rice.
President, Commissioner Menz, I think for at least a decade is my recollection. And the president under the rules would have the authority to add members to a committee, or it's been a practice to do that.
Okay. The second question, so Secretary Ringgold, I think I'm going to clarify again. So if an amendment is submitted by the 25th, it'll be attached to the resolution, so moving the resolution would have that amendment come up for discussion.
No.
President Forney, Commissioner Menz, the committee chairs determine which resolutions are on the agenda. And there will be, on that particular one, I anticipate the committee chairs will allow for a resolution to approve the budget. So once there is a resolution on an agenda, commissioners can submit amendments to those resolutions. If they submit them by noon, the day before the meeting, then they're posted and ready to go. And they're part of that resolution discussion if a commissioner moves it during that resolution discussion. I think maybe where this question is coming up is if there is no resolution on an agenda and a commissioner puts forward a brand-new resolution as an amendment, that's actually an amendment to the agenda versus something that would be an amendment to a resolution, and that's where you have to approve that going on to the agenda.
Okay.
So I think that's where these two questions are stemming from.
Okay. And from what I understand, I'm trying to make sure that this process is clear for me and maybe for other commissioners. We can submit amendments by November 25th. We can submit amendments to the resolution to approve the budget by December 3rd, and they'll be posted. But then we can also submit amendments less desirably at the board meeting per suspension of the rules?
Yeah.
Okay. And that would entail, and that's obviously less desirable. So we're going to have a list of amendments, and each amendment will come up and we'll vote on whether or not we want to hear that amendment. Is that the process that I'm understanding will happen? So each amendment that is listed under the resolution will have to, each one approve its discussion, and then we would discuss that amendment.
President Forney, Commissioner Menz, somebody would have to move the amendment. So there would be a main motion on the table. Somebody would have moved that, and then there will be an opportunity that if you have an amendment that's already been advertised, say, the day before, you would have to move that for the group to consider. They won't automatically consider it unless it's moved.
But it won't need a second or a vote?
A second is not needed, correct?
And then a vote to discuss that amendment would not be would need a, nope, we
No
would just
vote.
discuss it. Okay.
All you do is move the amendment, if it's been properly posted, if one member moves it, it's up for discussion, and it's an up or down vote on the amendment.
Oh, there's no discussion on the amendment?
There's a discussion, but there will not be a discussion about whether to debate the issue. It will be debated, and if it's moved and voted on, after discussion.
Thank you for that clarification.
Commissioner Musich.
Thank you, President Forney. So just to add to the questions that have been posed, it doesn't require, if you've pre-submitted your amendment, it does not require that supermajority to be considered, right? You just have to move it, and then we discuss it. And the reason that it's so important for us to be doing this at our next meeting versus at the meeting at City Hall is that the meetings we have here are broadcast to the public. They're not just an audio recording. And so it's much more transparent, which is why we would like to see all amendments come forward in that way. There's nothing in our rules that would prohibit people from bringing amendments at City Hall. That has happened in the past. However, it's really not transparent. There are not as many people in the room observing our work, and it just feels less appropriate than us trying to do it in advance. And since there's so few days this time around between the two meetings, I would hope that everyone would be able to submit any amendments they have in advance so that we all are aware of what people are going to ask for and we can properly consider it before we have our meeting. Thanks.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, I'd just like to take this opportunity in the spirit of transparency to kind of share some ideas that are percolating in my mind. I am uncertain whether I'm going to bring them forward formally as an amendment, but it's also a chance for me to publicly share some of my thoughts around the budget in particular. And in particular, 3 areas of concern. First is modifying our performance goals to eliminate the volunteerism point. That was kind of important to me starting as a commissioner. And I've really seen some of the successes that we've had in our environmental area, even in the last few months, with the rape and kidnapping that we had at Cedar Lake Peninsula, and how forestry, environmental services, volunteers have all really worked together in a coordinated way to transform that space in the last 3 months. And I really think that's an opportunity that we have, particularly in an area that we have very little or no funding. That's my first area. And I realize these are all trade-offs, so these are just percolating. Second, partially opening Graco and covering our youth shortfalls through reprioritizing basic maintenance line items, like operations and facilities, where we have such great needs. Making up shortfalls in our park expansion and youth programming at the cost of maintenance needs is a suspect approach, and something that is something that is easy to turn to, because it's a static line item, but it is also, these are facilities where our workers work, and they need roofs, they need lots of things. Third, reducing funds for neighborhood park pavement and sidewalk rehab, regional trails, and all the paved courts in our system, basketball, tennis, pickleball, et cetera. We are reprioritizing funding away from pavement and courts to support two things this budget cycle: a .75 seasonal environmental staff person and copper wire theft, both really important items. Why I wonder about this is because we invested in 2021 time and money and interns to do a complete asset lifecycle work around courts and trails with interns. And this provided us some good data about where we need to move the needle in funding maintenance of our bike and ped trails. And so everything's our trade-offs in the budget, but I really would think that we would hopefully be able to protect what we have and begin to move the needle now that we have the data, and not ignore it, but continue to move the data on what we need to maintain our trails. So those are three things that have kind of been raised their attention to me, and these are not easy times, but I just wanted to clue my colleagues in on how I was processing, and if I have any feedback from any of you offline, I would appreciate that.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Any more needs? Anybody want to say anything? We have another 6 minutes before open time. That's the only reason why I'm stretching it here. Not seeing any other lights, then I will go then to petitions and communications then. Commissioner Elper, I'd like to start.
Yes, I guess I would just share that we have a new School Board District 3 representative, Lucy Shefty, I believe is how you say her name. And so I'm excited to work with her for advancing our common priorities.
Commissioner Olson,
Pass.
Commissioner Rucker,
Pass.
Commissioner Busick, sorry.
I too will pass.
Okay, Commissioner Thompson,
Pass.
Commissioner Menz.
I feel like we should be trying to, put some time in here. So, I mean, I don't really want to speak, but first of all, very important business. If you didn't get a donut hole, I have 6 left. I think that there's been a lot of discussion in my community around what the park board did recently to adjust an error in judgment. And I think that it really speaks to the responsiveness of this organization, that we're not always going to get things perfectly right. We're going to have some misses. We might not understand what the impact would be to an individual community with closing of a service or changing of service delivery. My community, I know, is very, very grateful for the park board's responsiveness to reopening Wyndham Northeast. So I know that you all heard those discussions, and I think that there are some times where we just don't know what we don't know. And those responses are important, because I think that being transparent with what data we have, that's what my community was asking for. And I think really being outward and out front and public facing as much as we can really helps us build those bridges with the community that most of the time that we just want to be involved and understand where the decisions come from. And as the commissioner who's elected, I think that that responsiveness is really important for me too, that I can prepare my community or work with my community when I know what's coming. And that's, I think that all of us are some of the best public engagement that we have available. And please use us when that's necessary. But just wanted to send a really huge thanks to Superintendent Bangura, to all of the folks who had to switch up the maintenance structure for that to take place. Hopefully we will get some ice. But my community felt listened to, heard, and understood really is the most important thing, that they felt like the park board really did understand what this space meant to the community, the kids, and just so many folks. And I think that there was even a story on the news about it, and it seemed to get some good publicity. There was a story in the Northeast or two, and I found it really refreshing that they didn't mention my name at all. That it was, that they understood that this was community-led. This was community coming to our organization respectfully, calmly, and saying, hey, we really think that we missed here. You all missed here. So thank you so much for responding to that.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I'll mention two things. One is we've had 3 sessions for youth and community to brainstorm ideas for Wedge Point Park. And we've had 2 of the 3, and they've been really successful. I know planning project manager Colleen Odell led one of them or participated in one. And it's really been exciting. I think even between those 2 events, we had almost 60 kids and adults participate. And so we have one more this 24th on this Sunday, 11 to 3. There's a small stipend for kids and adults, and it's at Speak Minneapolis off of Nicollet. So if you have any interest in that, they still want some more people engaged. You have to live in the city of Minneapolis. And then related to a little bit of what I talked about volunteerism, we had another successful project happen in Eloise Butler recently, where one of the volunteers told me, because of the coordination with staff and clearing a section of path that was affected by the new fencing to help alleviate that concern, they eliminated 1.5 to 2 years of volunteer work of stripping buckthorn because they cut it and then staff came around and treated it. And so he was very thankful to me, and I wanted to pass on that thanks to Natural Resources about that coordination, because with the volunteer cutting and then the staff being able to apply the chemicals, it really reduced their work for that path. This was Jim Proctor, many of you know, by about 1.5 to 2 years. So that is the benefit better coordination between staff and volunteers can bring to our system.
I'm going to go into open time, being it is 5:30. So I'm going to read our open time rules. Thanks to all of you who want to share your thoughts and ideas with us during the open time. Before we start, I want to provide an abbreviated version of the open time rules. All individuals wishing to speak may call in before noon the day of the meeting to be placed on the agenda, or can sign up at the board meeting prior to the start of open time. I will be calling on the people that are on the sign-up list only. Open time for public input shall not exceed a total of 15 minutes with a time limit to be allocated by myself, the president. Please watch the timer up here to be considerate of others here to speak and stay within your allotted time. During open time, public testimony will be given without debate, and only clarifying questions from the board will be allowed. 2 types of items not appropriate for open time in order to protect the privacy of all individuals are pending litigation and personnel issues. Please refrain from commenting on specific personnel issues. We will not tolerate discriminatory and/or harassing words directed at anyone. So please ensure that all comments you make tonight comply with the policy. This board made the decision many years ago to operate under Robert's Rules of Order. Under Robert's Rules of Order, the ceding of time to another person is not allowed. So only those signed up to speak may only speak for their own allotted amount of time. We also request that each speaker provide his or her name and address. We have 5 people who have signed up, and I'm going to allow 3 minutes for each. The first one, I believe, is Adam Schindler, and then Danielle Tigran, I think. Please come forward, Adam.
Hello, President Forney and Commissioners. My name is Adam Schneider. Don't worry, I've been called worse. I live at 3238 Girard Avenue South, and I am the greening coordinator for Stevens Square Community Organization. I'm just here to provide a quick comment on Resolution 2024-231, which would be approving the purchase of 3 properties as part of a permanent gardens pilot program. Overall, Stevens Square Community Organization is all in favor of this program. Unfortunately, our community garden, LaSalle Community Garden, was not included in this initial set. This was due to recognized environmental condition that was found in an adjacent property. This is very disappointing to hear, but we totally understand the reasoning, and we are excited to see in the resolution that the park board is still interested in potential future action on our garden as well as 2 others. That being said, Stevens Square Community Organization is hoping to be an active participant in this process and investigating and remedying this REC or recognized environmental condition. And that's it. So please pass and let us know how we can help. Thanks.
Thank you, Adam. Daniel? And then after that is Erica Crazy Hawk.
Hi, good evening. My name is Danielle Tejan, and I live at 3506 Humboldt Avenue North, coming to speak about the same resolution, 2024-231. You all received an email from me and other multiple neighbors asking for your support in the purchase. It felt disingenuous for an opportunity to come and for you to be able to see me and share this moment with you, asking for support in this. There's a lot of talk always about scarcity, and when you rent a property for 10 years, it's a different type of investment, one always with the threat of that property being taken away. So when the proposal came before us, knowing that our long history and high involvement with our community, knowing that we could shift our mindset and really truly invest in this property that has become central to our world in the Falwell neighborhood. It is a key place where people gather and harvest and come together. It's been central for our advocacy work, for organizing, for connecting, for education, and it's so important as third space, and one that is public and open, right on a bus route, right by the park. And it's different than converting spaces in parkland because it's intimate and it can be curated and it's personal. And so I'm just here so that you see my face, also to issue an invitation that if ever you want to come and see this garden and see what's been building and creating and investing in, you're more than welcome. I would love to be able to come and give you a tour. We also do our we don't call it our edible winter tree anymore for obvious reasons. It's our winter light event on December 7th, where we light up the trees for the next 2 months because so many people are walking early in the morning and late at night home, and it's so dark. For every faith and practice, light is an important part in December. So December 7th from 3 to 5, you're welcome to join us at the garden and come and see what it's all about. But we hope that you will support it, and I'm here for any questions and follow up afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, and then I think it's Gazy Spears, sorry if I'm mispronouncing, but Erica, if you'd like to come forward. We can't hear you. Oh, yes, certainly, sorry.
Hello, my name is Gary Spears. I'm a South Minneapolis resident. I've lived near the Sibley Park with my family and other people who are Crow Creek Dakota people for the past 38 years in the area. Right now, we've been on with our group, First Nations United. We've been working on changing the park name, Strong Hearted Woman. That got approved at the time. That's a 34-month process, and then I believe that we've got signatures of 101 different people from different various communities. But at the time right now, it seems like some of the other people are pushing the process faster and disregarding our signatures in this petition. We had the last meeting we have, nobody even looked at it, and when I brought it, it didn't seem like it was brought it up in an email. It wasn't as an important issue. I feel that that's unjust and unfair at this time, and we're also going to have like another short meeting there this Friday at the actual Sibley Park with elders, and just to say, you know, as Dakota people, we were exiled in 1863, which was before 1883, which the park board was established. So Dakota people and Native people never had a park system and never asked a park system at the time. It was unfair for us because we were exiled after being hung. And then we were never given a chance. So in the argument and some of the stuff in there in our debates is how to traditionally go about renaming a park, which there is no traditional way of going about a park because a park system is a non-native idea of having a park system. We just believe that the human beings, which is Dakota people in the area, were mistreated and murdered by Sibley and exiled there, believe the story should be told, and rather than have inanimate objects represent the removal after Sibley. So, I mean, I just feel that we should have this chance for our people to, and our elders in here to be fairly, you know, contacted and supported to have a meeting rather than being pushed forward, and rather have a chance as fairly as Native people be asked first, because in the email it feels like we're being told. And we should have a fair chance for these people in here to be contacted and have their opinions expressed. I feel that they're really valid and important people. They're on Dakota 38 Run, which has been going on since 1986. That remembers the people that were hung by Sibley in this area. And I believe that that's a fair chance for our people to make a good, sound decision. We've been on this 34 months, and we don't feel like we should just be pushed out of the way and disregarded with this petition. Thank you for listening today.
Thank you. And Gary, if there's anything you want to share with commissioners, you can hand it over to Dawn there. Erica, if you'd like to come forward. And then after that is Mitchell Hansen, sorry.
You know, Habadakapi, all my relations here. Just honored to be able to stand in here in front of all of you guys, and you know, being as a Dakota exiled as he expressed, and you know, in regards to support with a strong-hearted, you know, woman named, you know, considering that I think I spoke with a few of you before a while back about a little bit of my story. But anyways, coming forward, you know, I really support, you know, that name change, and you know, we reached out to our Dakota elders over in Dakotas that are still there. And, you know, I just really support that. And, you know, watching the process and watching how hard, you know, him and the youth had worked, you know, and, you know, to get to where they are, you know, I really would, you know, would really like that honor to be able to have a space to be able to go and have our meetings, you know, with our women, you know, in that area. You know, so that's why, you know, I follow a lot of the people because I'm new to the area as well. So, you know, I just, I want to work in, you know, in partnership and unity, and, just to know that I'm learning about the processes and how they go, and you know, the procedures and all of that. But you know, I'm not one of those ones that, you know, I don't really take to the procedures and how they're going. But anyways, so real quick thing, you know, in regards to another person that, you know, Mike Forshaw's ideal of the East Phillips Park, okay, for the Red Road Village project, okay. So, you know, I stand in solidarity and respect, you know, to the vision of that space, and understanding that, you know, it's not a good spot to really have that, considering what we're all really facing out there on the streets and or anything. But you know, so and I was brought up on, you know, a while back. Mr. Olson was here, and another lady, I don't see her here, but wherever she is, that's the one I told my story to in the bathroom. So in any words, into all of this, I'm learning about the DNR and the parking boards, and kind of understanding, you know, my hereditary bloodline and on some of the unceded lands that are still here. And we didn't have the opportunity to come and, you know, really dig into all of that. But I'm not here to try to take anybody's lands or anything that, you know, are properly ours. I'm not like trying to be that way. I think we all just need to like move forward in this great way and, you know, be invited to some of these beautiful things. And I felt my spirit come back to life a little bit because I went through a lot of things. But the other thing was that what I wanted to do in regards to, you know, supporting in a good way with, you know, what my relatives want. I would really like to partner with you guys and help me with the DNR part, because I really would like to consider having a project like the Red Roll Village, you know, right there at the corner of by the Coldwater Springs area, you know, and doing these good healing things in that way. And like I said, I'm new and I'm learning. I've walked through my healing and all of that, and from the last time you saw me. And so other than wanting to like really learn a lot about the parks and systems, and really wanting to sit beside you guys out there and not be afraid of being pushed out or, you know, looked at upon. So I would like to visit with you in the future about, you know, that's healing space. Doksha, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Erica and Mitchell, if you'd like to come forward.
Greetings. I think first of all, we need to do a big shout out for Ms. Wiseman and Ringgold for all the hard work that they did to help us get funding along with the philanthropic partners to offer relief to people affected by the forest tree removals. It was an amazing partnership. It was great working with them, and I think it's like a good testament of how community can work with staff to really accomplish great things. So I can't say enough positive things about that relationship, and we're very grateful. And it's a great Christmas present to realize that all of a sudden you are no longer in debt on your property taxes. I'd say second, you know, I mean, Cargill is doing so much right now. Maybe we should like pump the brakes a little bit, because 2025 to 2029, we're gonna need them like really bad. But I just want to, you know, calmly point out that, and this is you know, provable. This is from data requests and emails and just public information that North Minneapolis from 2021 to 2023 got the second least amount of trees. Northeast was last those years. In 2024, North was number 3 behind South and Southwest. So I think it's just really important, without a forestry director right now, just to make sure that, you know, along with this $8 million grant, that we have systems in place to ensure that trees are going where they need to go, that we can work together collaboratively and just get the job done. Other than that, I do want to also point out that, you know, I do have a copy of the budget that Ralph had, and it does say that for tree planting, I know projected, he said it was about $2,100,000, and I know that may include like actual equipment, stuff like that. So I'm just kind of wondering where the relationship with city forest credits and Green Minneapolis or Green Cities Accord comes in, because I thought the whole purpose of that was to fund tree planting, and it's not. So I'm just kind of confused about that. They're sitting on a bunch of credits. They're selling them to polluters, hedge funds, and people that are basically just, you know, the trees can die and still count. So there's an incentive to plant as many bare root trees as possible, let them die, replant them, get as many credits as possible. But I guess with biochar now, you know, they got a whole new market. But it's just, I just wonder, without a director and like oversight, how forestry is gonna do this. And honestly, I feel like there's staff here that have done such incredible work that isn't even necessarily their job. But I do just want to really thank Ms. Ringgold and Wiseman for listening to us, supporting us, treating us as humans, and helping push this across the finish line. Because, as you know, I've been here a lot, but you know, I think it's a new era. 2025 is going to be tough. I just hope we can work together more. Thank you.
Thank you. On that, then, I will close then our open time and go back to petitions and communications, and Vice President Abene.
Thank you, President Forney. I just want to briefly mention, it's not my district, it's Commissioner Musich's, but I think a lot of us were engaged by citizens on the Minnehaha Dog Park planned fencing. So this weekend on Saturday, from 9:30 to 11:30, there will be staff from the Park Board, the National Park Service, and the Minnesota Historical Society on site hosting an event. There's more information about it on the website. So I would encourage people to go and hear about what the issues are and get a chance to speak a little bit too about what, how that works for you. So thanks.
Thank you. I failed to mention at our last meeting that a man who was a mentor to me was the Assistant Superintendent of Parks. Harvey Feldman passed away. And he was, like I say, a mentor when I was on People for Parks. David Fisher, who was the superintendent at that time, assigned him to me to, quote unquote, educate me about the finances of our system. He lived a life of parks, and I'm just really humbled and grateful that I was a part of his life. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. And then a reminder to commissioners, it's not required, but staff, when they are submitting their budget items and everything, do use a racial equity component, and I would encourage all of us to consider that if you are making any amendments to our budget. So with that, then I will adjourn and move then to planning, I believe. We've got a lot of items there.
Yes. Thank you, President Forney. Noting the time is 5:48, I'd like to call the Planning Committee to order. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Elper,
Present.
Commissioner Olson,
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Here.
Vice Chair Thompson,
Here.
Chair Benny.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. With that, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll move the agenda.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have an agenda. We have one set of minutes to approve. Would somebody move
I'll
those?
also move the minutes of October 1st, 2024 for approval.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay, so I'll give a little bit of I'll talk a little bit about what's on this agenda. We have 3 public hearings. I'm not a multitasker, so this has got a pretty high level degree of difficulty for me here. But the first public hearing will be at 6:30, and then we have one at 6:45 and 7 p.m. The first one is, I won't go into that. So we'll have to stop, but I'm not sure what we'll do if we might finish our agenda items before then, so we'll have to see what we do at that time. So with that, I think we need to go down the agenda. If someone would move it's item 5.4, first resolution.
I'll move resolution 2024-225, and I'll even request a presentation once it's moved.
You should read the resolution.
The resolution is a resolution approving the preferred concept plan for Harrison Park Playground and Park Improvements Project.
No, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm on
You're
the wrong
supposed
one.
to- Yep, you're supposed to read this one, right here.
For the love.
Yep, that's why I said, sorry.
Well, I got off. Okay, sorry, I rescind my attempt.
Don't move that one. Yeah, move
And
that
I am
one.
going to move resolution 2024-220, the resolution approving amendment number 6 to license agreement L304 with State of Minnesota Department of Public Safety for office space for Minnesota State Patrol at MPRB Headquarters Building 2117 West River Road.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Might not be. Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor of approving this resolution, please say aye.
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 Opposed? That resolution passes or carries. Motion carries. Okay, would somebody please read item 5.5, the next one in the list?
I will move resolution 2024-231. Resolution approving the purchase of land from the city of Minneapolis at 3500 Humboldt Avenue North, 3437 15th Avenue South, and 2015 Chicago Avenue for a total of $66,225 for the purpose of perpetuating existing community garden sites.
Great. I think I'd like to see a presentation on this one, just because this is, these are existing spaces that are going to be changing in deed, but I think not in use. So with that, I see Director Arvidsson coming to the podium. I'll give you a minute.
Chair Abeni, committee members. As you've heard, we've had some technical difficulties today, so I don't have a very detailed presentation, but I can walk through a couple things and also bring up this map. Sorry, I was gonna go into screen view. Maybe that's beyond my ability right now. So in essence, the request today is to move forward immediately with the purchase of 3 community garden sites from the City of Minneapolis's Community Planning and Economic Development Department. And those sites, as read in the resolution, are shown here on the map as the highlighted ones in purple. This is part of a pilot project, I think, which was referenced in some of the testimony during open time, and I appreciate these gardeners coming here tonight to speak about that. This is a pilot project that both Becca Gross with the community garden lead at the park board and also planning staff have been coordinating with the city for about a year now. And the idea behind this is that the city's CPED department essentially exists to sell land for development in the city. And in many cases, that's a good thing. Housing gets built, a lot of things happen. But in interim cases, CPED allows community members to garden on those sites under pretty short-term leases. And they can be essentially evicted at almost any time if the city gets an offer for developing those sites. This has been an issue since back when we adopted the community garden policy and the urban agriculture activity plan in 2014, 2015, 2016. And in those documents, the park board says that it will acquire existing community gardens and allow those gardens to continue to operate under their current structures in order to preserve those gardens that are most critical for food justice, community open space, and other factors. So the city's Homegrown Minneapolis group, which is not part of CPED, instigated this pilot where they've identified some gardens that they think are really critical to the foodways infrastructure in Minneapolis. And they've worked with CPED to get permission to sell those properties to the park board. There were initially 7 properties kind of on that initial docket. 6 of them were determined by CPED to be saleable. Those 6 are on the map here. And then we've gone through a process to look at some other decision-making factors around those properties. So obviously the first factor is the city's ability to sell, because that's not always the case. The second factor would be the stability of the garden management itself. So Becca Gross has met with representatives of all the gardens to understand how they're operating. A third factor is to look at whether the prices that are available can be borne by our existing funding sources. Under the city's rules, these sites have to be sold, but they can be sold at a market value that is not the highest and best use. Instead, it is the vacant land use. So that's why these prices are actually pretty low, because the city's able to do that without sort of assuming there's going to be a triplex on them. So we're looking at value of vacant land, not value of developed land. And so in that case, actually all 6 of these sites would have been purchasable under our existing acquisition fund balance. And then the other factor that we looked at was the environmental. And so the city prepared phase 1 environmental and soil testing on our behalf for each of these sites. And 3 of them came back with clean environmental records, and 3 of them have, as one of the speakers tonight correctly referenced, a known environmental condition. So 3 of those have known environmental conditions, and 3 of them do not. So what we are proposing tonight is that we move forward immediately with the 3 properties that meet all of those early conditions, including having a clean bill of environmental health. The 3 that do have known environmental conditions, that may not be a deal breaker for us. In some cases, that environmental condition is on an adjacent property. We need to do a little more investigation and talk to some professionals about what the risk and liability might be to us. Because in a sale like this, we cannot get a severance of responsibility for the environmental, right? There will be no, it gets put on a previous owner. We will take on all the environmental impact and liability. That's typical in an agency-to-agency sale. So we just need to understand a little bit better on those other 3 sites what we're getting into. So I want to assure this board, and also people who are still probably behind me in the audience, that we are continuing to pursue these other 3 garden sites. We just need to do some additional environmental fact-finding. But we wanted to move quickly on the 3 that were clean now, and those are the ones that you see in front of us. Included in the purchase prices that are proposed there is a payback to the city of Minneapolis for the Phase 1 environmentals for the sites we're purchasing now. So part of our negotiation with them is that they would bear the cost of those environmentals, and then we would pay them back as part of the purchase for the sites that we buy. So the city's taking a risk on that environmental analysis if we choose to not move forward with any of these. But for the ones that are highlighted in purple, they are included in that purchase price as described in your background. And with that, Chair Benny, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you.
We also do, sorry, I should note, we also do have Grace Rude from the City of Minneapolis here too, if anybody wants to speak more about the city's perspective on the pilot project.
Thank you.
Chair Benny.
Does anybody have questions? I have a couple questions. I'd also say that's a good deal. That price looks really like a good and beyond fair deal, so that's wonderful. Okay, at the last meeting, I had a couple of questions about biochar, and I said I'd be wandering around just saying the word biochar over and over again, but one of the things that they say on the website, the city's website about that, is that the biochar can be used in community gardens, and it has me thinking, you know, of course, how many CPED sites are there with these organic community gardens, and roughly, does anybody have a count of those?
Do you want to? I'd like to introduce Grace Rude from the City of Minneapolis.
Wonderful. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Grace Rude from Homegrown Minneapolis in the Minneapolis Health Department. Yes, there are approximately 60 lots that the City of Minneapolis owns that are currently being gardened on, and about, backwards math, 45 of those are on CPED property. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to do more math. 48 of those are on CPED property. So that's the number.
And Mr. Arvidsson, how many community gardens are currently, without, you know, obviously finding, you know, it doesn't have to be, consider these sites, but how many roughly does the park board have?
Chair Benny, the park board operates about a dozen sites on our own parkland.
Yep.
And those are operated by the community garden lead under the full community garden policy. So there's an annual application to become a gardener. It's a bit more directly managed. We currently have 4 of what we call legacy gardens, which are gardens that we acquired through various timelines and reasons and are managed by an entity that had been managing the garden prior to us acquiring it. The most famous example of those is the Sioux-Line Garden, but also the Shalom Garden in South Minneapolis, which was more recently acquired. And then there is one over on the north side too that's operated by the Shingle Creek Neighborhood Association. But there are 4 of those type of gardens, and so this would almost double the number of those legacy managed or externally managed gardens.
Okay, that's really helpful for me to understand the scope of all of this, and really I think it's really commendable that the city is willing to commit this as essentially permanent land use with so much demand for land in the city, but this is such a great use of land, and I know every time I've encountered community garden people, what they do, it's just really a passionate group of people. They're really quite something. I can say that somewhat categorically there. Any other questions or comments or anything? Well, with that, I would go ahead and like to go ahead and move this for a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-231, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. That motion carries. So with that, we have a while until the public hearing. We could begin the presentation. Okay. So let me see. Let me ask a question, Secretary Ringgold. So we should just start the presentation, but we don't have to move the first resolution to do that? Is that correct?
Chair Benny, yes, that's what I would do.
Okay. Okay, so the public hearing that starts at 6:30 is related to the final concept plan for Harrison Park. Michael Jones is the project manager for that project, and so here he comes. And there's Mr. Swenson.
Yeah, Chair Benny, Co-Chair Thompson. This is actually the first time Michael Jones is presented before the board. And it also happens to be his 1-year anniversary of working for us.
Wow. So if he passes this one test, then,
He's
okay,
in.
one last
No.
test.
But he's been busy, right? So there's been consent items and things like that have been brought to the board, but no presentations. So we're thankful to have Michael here as part of the planning team. He's a registered landscape architect. He comes from private practice, working for a firm in Minneapolis here. And we have a number of things that Michael gets to do, and he was busy in his previous job, and now we're trying to keep him just as busy. So we welcome Michael to the team, and we're thankful that he's here, and so take it away.
Thank you.
Oh. Good question. I'm used to being. How do we get the PDF? How do you get it full screen? It's a PDF. Yeah, I couldn't get the PowerPoint. There should be like a view, isn't there? Yeah, I know. I can't see it. Maybe you just do it from this view. We'll figure it out. We'll just do it this view. We'll do it this view. Full screen. There you go.
Perfect. Thank you. It's been a day of technology, that's for sure.
Yes.
All right. Good evening. Thank you. Again, my name is Michael Jones. I'm here to present the Harrison Park Playground and Park Improvements Project and final design concept. Harrison Park is located on the southern portion of the North Service area. It is also just south of Highway 55. Today, Harrison Park exists the Harrison Rec Center. Within its park, it also has a couple ball fields, existing playgrounds, full court basketball, and a wading pool that was updated in 2016. To start engagement, we used the approved master plan, which was approved in 2019, as a framework for design and community engagement. One thing that we did just before community engagement is really understand what the vision plan approved and how does that work with existing conditions. And we heard a little bit about tree canopy in the north. How does that work with it? I'm actually working with forestry and better understanding existing conditions. We understood actually the proposed basketball court, for instance, was in a location where existing 6 to 8 trees would have been removed just for the basketball court itself. In addition to the tree canopy that would be compromised, we also had a little grade issue and challenge with that, so we would be creating additional retaining walls and potentially fencing just for the basketball court in that current proposed location. Also, before moving into community engagement, just understanding our sources and opportunities for this project with park dedication, capital levy, and NPP 20 funds, subtracting the design fees, geotechnical, and administration, we're looking to propose design concepts and projects that are close to $1.6 million moving forward. During engagement, we had the opportunity to meet several stakeholders and local neighborhoods, associations, community members. We work exclusively with the Harrison Neighborhood Association, several education centers, including River Bend, Harrison Education Center, and also local events such as Bring Back 6th Avenue, which is a movement that is adjacent to Harrison Park. In all, we've had over 400 participants, either online or in person, through local events, open houses, and even MPRB events. This engagement allowed us to prioritize some of those design concepts, including opportunities to look at what the multi-field sport could be, improving the traditional playground that is there, and the use of basketball. During community engagement, there are several themes that arose. Of those themes was this idea of play and increased playability throughout the park in many different ways. An idea of connection, creating a space for community members to connect, And education, since we are adjacent to many of those education centers, how can we bring education within the park? So using those key themes really drove the final design concept and were embedded in the design extensively. The idea of play. This new design creates a new playground destination and also a way of others creating this playground that has multiple abilities, and available for many different ages. Also, the idea of increased play with basketball. So the existing basketball court is really challenged currently. So the idea of increasing and renovating the basketball court, but not just increasing it, but also adding an additional court that could be a sport court, increased basketball play, but also other sports that the rec center could provide within that sport court, including volleyball, additional basketball, pickleball, and other opportunities. And then the final idea of increased play within our field sports. So currently there's 2 existing baseball diamonds there. Keeping one of those baseball diamonds, but regrading and creating an opportunity for multiple types of sports, field sports within that space. The next was the idea of connect. Creating a place for community members to connect with a new community plaza and an opportunity for a shade structure to be adjacent to the existing wading pool, but also others to see as parents watch their kids at the new playground. And then finally, educate. Education is very important, as we mentioned, to the stakeholders that are right next to it. So the idea of increased habitat and ecological opportunities within the park with these new naturalized areas, and also an opportunity for informational signage. We actually were just recently approved through the Cargill Foundation of a grant that is just geared to just the improvement of this naturalized area. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time and open up for questions.
Thank you. Secretary Ringgold, if we haven't moved this for discussion yet, shall we wait to have questions, or is it okay to have questions based on the presentation?
Chair Benny, really good question. This probably would be the moment to move it so you can discuss it.
Okay. So would somebody move the resolution that's V1?
Yes, I will move Resolution 2024-225, the resolution approving the preferred concept plan for Harrison Park Playground and Park Improvements Project.
So we'll certainly hold off approving this resolution till after the 6:30 open time. But with that, are there any questions? Any comment? I have a question here from Commissioner Thompson. So excited.
It's actually not a question, but it's just
Okay.
a comment.
Yeah.
And that is to say thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting Michael around this park, even though this is his first presentation to us. And I know that we talked about this, like it's just a really challenging, there's just a lot of stakeholder desires and needs. And so seeing this, I'm very impressed, and I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work. And thank you so much.
Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, sorry, this isn't about, the park looks great. I'm just wondering if it's possible if we can suspend the rules to move up the comment period. I mean, it's not really looking like folks are showing up for it, and the last one is 50 minutes away, and I don't know, just a thought.
Chair Benny, Commissioner Olson, I think the risk you run is if somebody is coming thinking it's time certain at 6:30 and we've adjourned, I think that's a risk.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. I would agree, and there are 2 other public hearings. So we're just going to sort of stall here a little bit, but any other questions or comments for Mr. Jones? Okay, well done. Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Great, it looked like great community engagement, so that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll, yes, I'll call on Commissioner Thompson. Do you have
I was just wondering a point of clarification toward Commissioner Olson's idea. Is there a way to have a presentation on something else without
we'll do that
moving
right
a
now.
different
Yeah.
resolution?
We'll go to
Yeah,
the next
okay.
presentation, yeah. Yep, with that, we don't need to move it at this point, but we would next like to ask for the presentation by Ms. Christensen and Ms. Hudek related to the public hearing related to the Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan. We're getting that ready.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to talk about the Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan and advancing that through approvals. So a brief timeline on the project. It started in fall of 2022, and in July of 2023, you all passed a resolution, 2023-127, that provided some guidance to prepare a capital-only joint powers agreement and a regional trail plan that was focused on low-cost amenities. So we advanced that forward, and in March of this year, a joint powers agreement between the city, Hennepin County Regional Rail Authority, and the Park Board was approved. So we moved forward with the regional trail plan, which brings us here today. The engagement period for that was the public comment period, which was from June 20th to August 5th. And then following the closing of that, staff have reviewed all of the feedback and brings us here today. For moving through approvals and kind of the next steps for this plan, we are bringing it to committee for you all tonight to consider, and then if it advances to full board, that would be at your December meeting. And we are moving it through this process with you all so that we can then submit the plan to the Metropolitan Council for their review and approval, which we hope to be able to do in December yet. And we are on kind of this timeline with the Met Council so that we can advance doing the regional park and trail counts, which we would like to do for 2025 so that we can start the process for getting those into the use estimate, which helps to get that funding calculation for the Greenway kind of incorporated. So just as a reminder, that with the agreement, just a big piece of that was that the park board isn't going to own or operate anything within the regional trail boundary except for the park board properties that are within the boundary. And again, that was approved in March of this year. So that brings us to our trail plan, which really was building a lot on previous plans and engagement because so much has been done with the Greenway over the last 20 plus years of its existence. And so this was really kind of an administrative step so we could advance it through the Met Council's approvals. So it's got all those requirements. It has to go through your approval process, of course, and then we really focus the engagement on the amenity zones and low-cost capital improvements per the guidance from you all. So here's the regional trail boundary. It's that lime green line, and then the orange kind of shapes are highlighting the 5 different park board properties that have been incorporated into the trail boundary, and they include the mall, Sioux Line, the CPRO site, and then a ramp to Brackett between the trail and Brackett Park. Brackett Park is not in the boundary, just that little ramp, and then a small portion of West River Parkway where the trail connects into Mississippi Gorge Regional Park. So these, the 3 park areas that are fully included, Sioux Line, CPRO, and the mall, were included because they're contiguous to the trail. They have a park benefit, and all of the amenities, or most of the amenities within those areas would be eligible for regional funding. And so there's a lot of benefits to doing that, including streamlining the administrative piece for when we have to do park counts in these areas. It maximizes the protections within that regional designation, and then creates some funding flexibility and also provides some additional acreage, which also goes into those funding formulas that the council has. So you've probably seen these graphics before. We have within the trail plan chapter, there are segment maps. There's 11 of them that divide out the full trail, and it shows the planned improvements across the trail and kind of what's envisioned over that 20 to 30 year period, which is sort of typical for our regional trails. And then this one is showing the kind of oval, which is in orange, for the Sioux Line Garden amenity zone. And those amenity zones are where we had focused the engagement for those low cost amenities. And You may have noticed if you look through the plan that the amenity zone graphics weren't in the final, and that was because we really used those as a tool during the draft plan engagement to get feedback from folks. Those graphics are in the appendix, but in lieu of those in the trail plan chapter, there's a list of the different possible amenity zones, and there's also narrative descriptions for each. And the segment maps do highlight all 11 of those zones. During the engagement, we highlighted the amenity zones, the low-cost amenities, wayfinding and ecological enhancements, the regional trail boundary itself, and those are really the focus. We did a lot of engagement that was kind of in person, online. The primary way we got feedback was through the online survey, and the draft plan was online, and in Spanish and Somali as well as English. We then, once the comment period closed, went through all of the feedback and divided it into comments and grouped those into themes, and then we assigned those to a scope based on the guidance we had gotten from you all. So things are in scope or out of scope, and we use that to help kind of differentiate and provide those potential amendments to you all. So the ones that you all received were the items that were in scope. So we received over 868 comments in total, which divided into 84 themes, and 63% of those were in scope, so quite a few. And then we also did have some out-of-scope themes as well. So some examples of those include things related to lighting, safety, trail maintenance, and things like that. So we have all of that information, and we'll share that with the city and HICRA. And it's also fully in the public comment tabulation too. So the primary kind of three things for potential discussion would be amenity zone locations, the low-cost amenities list, and then a potential land acquisition area. So within the amenity zones, we incorporated 3 additional locations following the public comment period. 2 of them really fill a gap that was identified on the eastern portion of the trail. And then it also created a few additional spots where we could provide some park-like amenities throughout the trail corridor. So here's a map of the final 11 zones, and the 3 that are in orange are highlighting the 3 that were added. Everything else is the same from the draft. So there was also one added on the very western side where the trail, Midtown Greenway, connects into the Kenilworth Regional Trail. And then for the low-cost amenities list, it's also in bold and kind of in the plan. But here's kind of the final list. And the idea with the amenities list is that each amenity zone has a cost estimate that's kind of averaged across and incorporates the low-cost amenities kind of within those costs. And the final complement and kind of distribution of all of these would be determined upon implementation. So this is kind of giving a suite of options. And so if this list looks good, great. Otherwise, if you want to make modifications, that's partly why we're bringing this up. And then the last thing is that the potential land acquisition area that we wanted to just bring to your attention is on the east side of the Sabo Bridge near Hiawatha. On the map, it's shown in purple. It's a Metropolitan Council-owned parcel. So if the park board was interested in potentially acquiring that in the future, we do have an amendment. I think it's the last potential amendment on that list. So if you were interested in seeing that as maybe something that the park board would acquire in the future, the amendment would be a way for us to incorporate some information into the trail plan. Wouldn't commit us to doing it right now, but just would be a way for us to add information. And that's all I've got.
Okay. I know we did just move a resolution for a discussion from the previous one, but I think what we should do is just do the third presentation right now. So that one, let me see here. Thank you very much, Ms. Hudick. Now what I'd like to ask Ms. Pachuda to come up and give us the presentation, please, for the final concept plan for Elliott Park. And for people that might have come into the room, we have 3 time-certain public hearings. The first one is at 6:30, so we are not operating this meeting in any kind of linear fashion. We're doing this, which is really hard for me. But I think we're on target. So this will be the third presentation Thank you very much, Ms. Pachuta.
Good evening, Commissioners. Michael and I will be going over the resolution for approving the final concept for the east side of Elliott Park this evening. When planning staff came into the conversation around Elliott Park, the park board had already actually been having a number of internal conversations regarding safety in the park. Since COVID-19, Elliott Park has experienced a spike in crime. So one of our goals with this project was a little unique. We really wanted to create a design that addressed the current safety issues and also increased activation on the east side of the park. So the red dashed line is kind of the area that we were looking at with the park, and it's the area that's experiencing kind of some of the safety challenges as well. So we really used the 2017 Elliott Park Plan that was approved through the Downtown Service Area Master Plan as a framework for our engagement. So that park plan actually looks at moving the playground and wading pool and kind of moving that over closer to the recreation center. It proposes a seasonal activity space in the center of the park, and then also adding some community garden space. This is just a snapshot of the engagement that we hosted. We did 2 rounds of engagement. Our first was a vision and discovery phase where we really worked with community partners to meet people where they were at. So we actually hosted focus groups and open houses, some at the park, but we actually really struggled to get people to come visit us at the park. So we actually went to a lot of places in the community, and we went to go talk to the community members where they were to really learn what they wanted to see in the park. And then we came out with 3 design iterations, and then we did a second round of engagement, again, kind of meeting people where they were at in the neighborhood. There were kind of 5 themes that really rose to the top during our engagement. The first was safety. People were really concerned about safety in the park. Many reported they wouldn't even come to the park unless they saw something change. The second was that people wanted to see an increase in programming and activation. So we were really lucky that there's a number of really engaged partners in the community who are excited to work with our recreation staff to host some programming. The third was public art. People really wanted to see local artists elevated and really feel like they had kind of a space that represented themselves in the park. The fourth was that people actually liked the framework of what was already in the Elliott Park Plan from 2017. And then the fifth thing was that people wanted to see more amenities in the park. They wanted to see more things added to make sure that we could activate that side of the park. So the design really reflects what we heard over the course of the summer and fall from the community. We also implemented a number of temporary safety strategies. This was done in partnership, again, with some of our internal departments, our park police, maintenance, recreation. We installed a temporary art mural on a storage facility. We increased some lighting in the park and also added some additional signage. People really wanted to see action now. So then alongside thinking about construction next year, we were really trying to respond to those the things that people were concerned about right now. And then I'll invite Michael to go over the design.
Good evening again. Before getting into the design, one thing, as Emma mentioned, there's been a lot of engagement with this project. And one thing to know with this final design, it's really been a collaboration of a lot. It's been a lot of community input, a lot of Elliott Coalition groups, stakeholder meetings, and a lot of internal meetings that really led the design of this final concept, including Park Police, CCVP, and rec staff. So it's really a combination of many entities that really developed this final design. First and foremost, we heard safety was a very big issue and a challenge at this park. And we actually hosted a safety forum or a focus group in Elliott Park at the rec center with many local businesses, local stakeholders, the Elliott Coalition, and just to understand what they deem as safe or what safety strategy they feel that could be implemented in this upcoming design and new design concept. So with that, we developed the safety strategy kind of checklist as we moved through the project. We actually had a design, or each one of the designs, we literally had a check mark in response to what does this design provide in regards to how safety is implemented or embedded in that concept. Looking into actually safety, environmental safety and design in the actual final project, some of the strategies that we're looking into improve include perimeter ornamental fencing, reduction of berms to increase visibility into the park, looking at addressing access points. And all of these have been, I would say, worked together with the park police and the maintenance staff just to understand, does this work in regards to their vision too, as well. Other strategies also include pedestrian lighting, and then also additional signage and other opportunities. Emma talked a little bit about art and the idea of influence of art within the design. We did the temporary art strategy. We also looked to opportunities for new murals that could be embedded in the design, including the basketball court. Other designs that could be influenced are creative path lighting and additional pavement improvements. We've also talked to internal staff of an opportunity to embed either local art or a combination with the U of M as an opportunity to place artwork that could be installed into our park. That's further to discuss. And then the idea of increased programming, really activate the park as best we can, and working with rec staff to see how that could be most improved. Opportunities within this design include expanded playground, a flexible patio that could include multiple sports, or an opportunity to pull out an additional basketball court or basketball hoop, pickleball right next to the building. And then finally, this flex lawn that centers in the middle of it, an opportunity for rec staff to really program as best they can, whether it's outdoor yoga, additional soccer fences or goals in the park. We're also potentially looking into adding a platform or a stage that is near the rec center. This gives opportunity for local stakeholders to really activate the park of the idea of music in the park, create a focal point within the design. And then finally, one of the, I'd say, big takeaways that I took away from the community engagement was the idea of enhancing outdoor fitness within the park. We understand that this is not something in our typical, and we've actually done tours outside of Minneapolis just to understand how it's been done, either in the past or moving forward, and talking to local reps too. So this was another idea that made a lot of, I would say, community members and stakeholders very excited with this future design. Funding, looking at what we have in regards to sources. We have capital funds, NPP 20 funds, and then park dedication. Apologize for the fuzziness on this. We've been kind of working through some technology today. And then with park dedication and minus design fees, environmental admin, we're looking at a project that's a little under $3 million. So with that, I'm open to questions as well, if time allows.
Well, thank you. Your timing is perfect. What we'll do is, why don't you guys hang tight, and I'll go ahead and read the public hearing rules. I think I'll just kind of skim them a little bit here, but.
Chair Benny, I will say there is nobody signed up, so you can open it and close it.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to open the public hearing for the final concept plan for Harrison Park. And I see a hand waving there in the crowd. So I know this is Mr. Mitchell Hansen. Does he have to record his name on something, or?
Chair Benny, when it comes to the public hearings, you are able to ask if anybody is in the audience and wants to speak to it.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like? Come on up, Mr. Hansen. We'll give you a couple minutes, and thank you.
I was about to leave, and I had to come back because Michael is just so awesome to work with. Like, to see the image of the park and be like, this is a park. He went to the school I used to work at, Riverbend, setting 4. Not an easy place, an easy school to even go in, even if you don't work there. He got the kids so engaged. They were so excited. They were like, oh my God, am I going to win? Is my thing going to win? They were so pumped. So in addition to this, I just want you to think about these kids that are in like the hardest school are going to have this at recess. Before, they were finding gross stuff on the playground. It was just not, one basketball court. That's not enough, for people who want to play. So I just can't say enough positive things. He did community outreach right. And I think, the original plan, it just gravitated naturally towards what people wanted. So I can't be more grateful for him. Anytime someone's going to design stuff in Harrison, yeah, we'll take Michael. So.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that is interested in speaking to the Harrison Park final concept plan? Anybody? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing. So, moving back to our agenda, that resolution, the resolution to approve the final concept plan was something we already moved. Is there any further discussion? It looks like,
Sorry,
Commissioner
no,
Olson?
no, I had some
Not in,
questions
not in
about
here, okay.
Elliot.
So, okay, if there's no further discussion on the approving the Harrison Park Final Concept Plan, Resolution 2024-225, I'd like to take that to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. We have another public hearing in 15 minutes roughly, so before, I see Superintendent, or, I'm sorry, Secretary Ringgold.
Thank you, Chair Benny. I wanted to just draw attention, I just handed out, because you're not able to open it on the online agenda software, the amendments in scope for the Midtown Greenway project, so that's what I just handed out.
Great. May I ask a question of you, Secretary Ringgold? Do we have anybody here to speak on the, well, let's actually move back to the, I'd like to move back to the Midtown Greenway item.
I would like to move the resolution.
Yeah,
Would that
well,
be amenable?
one second, let me double check this for 1 second here. Yeah, let's move back to that one. Please go ahead and move it for discussion. Yep.
I will move Resolution 2024-224, the resolution adopting the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan.
Okay, thank you. Is there discussion? Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes, I had some questions for staff. Can you describe to me the purpose of the warming shelter and what that looks like size-wise roughly?
So the Commissioner Schaefer, Chair Benny, apologies. The warming shelter was one of the ideas that came out of the public comment time. I think when I think of a warming shelter, I'm thinking of maybe like something small that might be sort of similar to like a bus shelter. But honestly, at this point, these are potential amenities. There hasn't been any discussion about design because that would come in the implementation time.
Great. Thank you. I have a little bit of concern about that amenity, but thank you so much for your work. I'm really excited about this. I'm just going to highlight a couple thoughts that I have, and I realize that implementation, you know, a lot of this detail will be flushed out, and I really appreciate your earlier question answering time that I had with you. With 5.5 miles and 11 activity zones, that's like more than one every half mile. I am supportive of adding the ones that are in here, but maybe at the time of implementation, we can look at the budget and maybe it makes sense to really narrow that number and make them more robust in certain locations versus the number. And then I think it would be important for the wayfinding really to be able to be read on a bicycle. Versus being the map of like the grand round that we have, because it's difficult. You have to get off your, you know, we can have some that are maybe maps, but then some that are actually directional to know where we are to get off. And then also including wayfinding beyond the scope if there's a amenity with our partners, but in Hopkins near the depot, if there could be some kind of sign that would say Midtown Greenway this way, that's a place that a lot of cyclists get turned around. And then also on the other side of course, Minnehaha Parkway. You know, it's really hard to find the Greenway if you're a first-time rider coming that way. And I believe that was it. And I would like, if you could speak a little bit more to the adding of the land, the last amendment where it says to add the land acquisition area east of Sabo Bridge. Can you tell me what the park board would like about that land if we were to acquire it, and what the benefit would be of including this right now as an amendment?
Commissioner Schaefer, Chair Benny, the real benefit would be that it would just be some additional parkland that the park board would have site control over within the regional trail corridor, which would be a way for us to kind of guarantee what that looks like should the Met Council at a later time choose to sell, and if it wasn't to the park board. But I think beyond that, it is a sizable kind of piece of land there, and it might create a space where we could have maybe some smaller park kind of amenities in there, and that might be a little bit of a bigger amenity zone, perhaps. But I think those are some of the pros if
Great.
it were to move forward.
And Chair Bennett, I would like to move that amendment when it's the appropriate time.
Okay, this evening okay. With that, I'll go to, I believe Commissioner Thompson had her light on next.
I did. Thank you so much for answering my questions across the internet earlier this week. It helped clear up in my brain a lot of like, whoa. Seeing all these amendments as well, I am concerned. Obviously, I think that everybody knows we do trails better than any of the other partner organizations. I'm just concerned for costs to us at this time. Of course, we're in budgetary stuff. And these potential amendments, I know it's like forward thinking, but would that have to be negotiated later on about how this is gonna get paid for? Or would it come from Met Council dollars? What's just like spitballing, projecting out? What do you think would happen with that? I'm thinking like something simple like picnic tables would be great, right? Adding a drinking fountain sounds amazing, except for there's no water infrastructure and pipes, right? So would that fall on us, or would that fall on one of the other partner orgs?
Commissioner Thompson, Chair Bene, with regard to the drinking fountains and picnic table examples, those are both things that we did include in that low-cost amenities list. And those items that are on that potential list of things that would go within those 11 amenity zones, those are the 11 areas where we would kind of focus those regional dollars to go. In that, within the joint powers agreement, we kind of outline those roles and responsibilities, and really the park board's responsibility regarding those amenities would be bringing the capital funding to implement those things. And logistically, how that would go would be we would have the money come through in the CIP. We'd kind of start that process. We would present, here's generally the amenity zone, generally the low-cost amenities we're thinking that would go here. We would have to get approval from all three agencies, and particularly the landowner, in some cases the park board, in some cases the city or HICRA. And then there would also have to be an identified party for who would maintain it. Within the agreement, it doesn't detail who the maintainer of these low-cost amenities would be. It's really going to be at the time of implementation where that would be determined. The park board kind of has made it very clear in our in both the resolution you all have put together and as well as our communications at a staff level that we are not interested in maintaining things that aren't on park board land at this time. So that has been very clearly communicated, and that would be continued to be conveyed upon implementation, which at this point wouldn't happen until the earliest, I think, that a funding allocation would come forward, if this all was to advance, would be 2030. So we're at least 6 to 7 years from doing any kind of implementation with park board dollars.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that makes sense. So is there any, I mean, the partner's responsibilities, it's different, as you just said, it's different because we don't own the underlying land. Is this a sort of indefinite agreement, or does it have a revisitation date that I missed of like, hey, this goes till 2030 and then we're gonna revisit what this looks like? Because I know that Hennepin County had wanted to keep that for potential rail at some point, and that of course has already been decades in the making, but in the non-making. So I'm just curious, does it have an end date, or is it sort of like just completely open-ended to our agreement?
Commissioner Thompson, Chair Bene, there is a termination clause in the agreement, but I don't believe we have any set date within there for kind of a revisiting. I think that we would inherently have to revisit if the transit corridor opportunity was to come to fruition. There is also some language in the agreement related to the transit corridor. It's also, there's the same language, I believe it's like word for word in the regional trail plan to clearly communicate that this is still a transit corridor. So there would still be that transit possibility. Though the reason that the southern portion of the trench, as you look in the trail plan, it's kind of a darker green and isn't in the regional trail boundary, is that's generally where they've kind of envisioned the transit to go. So while it is still, they have the whole corridor, the idea would be that the trail would still potentially exist even with transit. And there would still be some commitment if there were low-cost amenities that were put in an area where transit was potentially going to go, let's say, the amenities would have to be in place for however long the funding connection has for those.
That makes sense. So just to clarify, there's if there's a termination clause, but one of the parties would have to activate that, or would a termination clause in, say, like 2035, right? Would that require board approval? If staff were to come to this body again in 10 years and be like, hey, this isn't quite working out for us, we think we should end the agreement, right? Is that sort of what we're looking at?
Commissioner Thompson, Chair Benet, yes, the board would have a say in that termination clause, period.
Otherwise, it's just completely open-ended based on approving this today or, in the next couple meetings.
As the agreement would be in place once it is approved, but it would activate if the Midtown Greenway were to become a regional trail, and it would continue. That agreement would continue to exist unless the termination clause was activated. It would continue to exist as long as the Midtown Greenway were to continue to be a regional trail.
Okay. Thank you. I'm curious about that, but you answered my questions. Thank you. And I killed a lot of time for us. Sorry.
Commissioner Elper.
Thanks. It's hard to believe that time has flown by since we initially approved this. I was trying to remember back when that was. Was it a year ago? Well, I know we saw on the timeline, but I'm trying to remember in my own head. What was I doing then? Anyway, so thanks for the hard work that I know that went into this. I have just a couple clarification questions, but I want to start. Let's say we add, bike repair stations, bike parking, drinking fountains, outdoor fitness equipment, grills, picnic tables, trash cans, to this master plan, to this regional trail plan, which is essentially a master plan in concept, correct? It doesn't mean everything's going to be built that's in this plan. Like, even the things that are in this now, we're going to pick and choose what's actually implemented, correct?
Commissioner Alper, Chair Benet, the regional trail plan would be like any of our other long-term park plans or master plans, in that they are the 20 to 30-year vision, and we would want to see, I think, everything included come to fruition over time, to be able to kind of carry out what the community has shared with us. But that isn't always the case with how the plans go. With specifically the low-cost amenities, the list that we've incorporated into the regional trail plan is meant to be sort of a menu of options. And so with regard to those things, we included a few things in there that, maybe there'd be one that would get implemented across all 11 zones. Again, to be determined upon implementation. Those are in there to kind of create some flexibility, but those also don't have to be implemented right away or at all.
Great. Thanks for that clarification. And do I have more time, or are we stopping promptly?
Thank you, Commissioner Alper. Why don't we go ahead and stop? I'll open the public hearing. I think no one has signed up. So I'll open it and close it rapidly here. So I would like to open the public hearing for the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Plan. Is there anybody that would like to speak on that plan? Anybody here to speak? Anyone here to speak? With that, I'll close that public hearing. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So I have a clarification point, just looking at the list of amendments. Can you talk to me about the relationship between Amendment GG, the last one about the land acquisition area east of Sabo Bridge, and U, which is suggestion for an amenity zone on the east side of the Sabo Bridge, but then the plan modifications are to remove the Hiawatha Avenue amenity zone? And that struck me, anyway, if you could talk about the two of them together.
Commissioner Alper, Chair Abene. So with Amendment GG, which is about that land acquisition area, that was one of those items that I had in the presentation, and that's really just about incorporating some language into our implementation chapter about potentially acquiring that in the future. The amenity zone could exist kind of either way. The amenity zone could continue to be where it is in the plan, even if that acquisition was not to advance, because there are other amenity zones within the regional trail boundary that are not on park board land. So to your question about Amendment U, or potential Amendment U, there are, I believe it's 15 of these potential amendments that are within this list are ones that did get incorporated into the regional trail boundary. So potential Amendment U is actually one of the themes that we did incorporate into the plan around having an amenity zone east of the Sable Bridge. So that's why the language there would be on removing that. So should commissioners decide to not want to pursue that theme, then you could remove it.
Okay.
I know this
that struck me as very confusing because there are a couple other ones like R that says suggestion to add an amenity zone, but then the plan modification is to remove two amenity zones. So that anyway, and there's the same deal with V where you add an amenity zone, but it's removing the bracket. Anyway, okay, so great. Thank you. I think my questions are answered, but are we on to the option of making, did we move this already? Could I make an
This one
amendment?
has been moved, yeah. And so we're just finishing up discussion, and then I think Commissioner Schaefer said she wanted to forward and advance an amendment, so.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
So-
Well, I guess I'm very interested in Amendment GG, the adding language around land acquisition about that area east of the Sabo Bridge. I mean, I was just whispering over here to Commissioner Olson that that land that I went out back in the day and helped plant trees at this beautiful rolling meadow in this area here, and it has a lovely little bench and a seating area, and quite frankly, I think we would do a much better job of taking care of this land than it's the Met Council, which is the current owner. So, I believe that if we are to, I think it would make sense to add the language, but that doesn't mean, I believe if the opportunity comes up to actually acquire the land, there would be another vote. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, but if we don't add it to the plan, then there would not be an opportunity to add it in the future? Is that how it goes?
Commissioner Alper, Chair Bene, if it weren't added in the plan now, in order for us to kind of advance that in the future, we'd have to amend the plan to incorporate that at a later time.
Okay, given the fact that it's immediately adjacent and that it has a stunning view of downtown, for example, I just like to put that out there, and I believe it's also in an area that's been designated as lacking in parkland. I would like to put forth this amendment. I can do it now or later.
So you're moving it?
I would like to move Amendment GG.
Okay. Let's go ahead, members of the committee, vote on adding this approving the motion to add this amendment for discussion. Wait, I'm sorry, I'm getting so confused. So is there any discussion then on that? We have a motion to add this amendment. Any discussion on that amendment? Commissioner, I'm going to go with Commissioner Thompson. She had her light on just now with this new topic. Yes.
I just know that Commissioner Schaefer had also talked about that amendment, so I was curious her thoughts before we move forward. If you would enlighten me.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Thank you, Chair Benny. I would like to see my request to, getting my words out here, I would like to give this opportunity to Commissioner Alper to move this amendment, and I would like to move one other amendment. I'll just mention that right now so you all can read it, but it's H. the suggestion to remove the warming shelters from the list of low-cost amenities. And I'd like to have discussion around that, but I'd like to defer to Commissioner Alper's direction at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think it's easier, I think, to discuss one amendment at a time.
Yep.
So I want to come back to yours, but is there any discussion about Commissioner Alpers? And I actually have a question. So you asked the question of the staff, and I saw thumbs up out there, but I couldn't hear your question. It was before the, yeah, could you repeat
Yes.
the question before your,
Yes,
before your last question?
Okay. You're testing my memory.
I'm sorry.
I think what I was just trying to understand is if we add this to the plan, does it mean that we are definitely acquiring the land, or is there another vote? And the answer is there would be another vote. But if we don't add it to the plan, then it would require a plan amendment to, in the future, to acquire the land. Okay, I got it right.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Is there a discussion around this motion right now? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, it's funny, I actually was saying to Commissioner Alper that I'm not so sure about this amendment. I just kind of philosophically about acquiring land and spreading thin and, what we can actually provide, and it is kind of a beleaguered area. However, any acquisition of the land would be probably not even at the next board's jurisdiction. It'd probably be the board after that. And I do think it would be appropriate to at least give that future board the opportunity in whatever future circumstances they have, an easy opportunity to consider acquiring the land. Because it could be certainly much better used. Right now, I don't know if you're familiar with it. I mean, it's fenced off and it has, I think it has concrete barriers. It used to have concrete barriers there because as in kind of anti-encampment measure. And it's, fairly blighted and it's really not an asset to the city right now. However, it is kind of an intersection at some various trails and, it's just across the way of the, gosh, I can not remember the name of it, but heavily polluted areas, the smelting factory that is industry that is foundry that is being put away. So as far as environmental justice and creating positive green spaces, it could in the future be worthwhile. So even though I'm kind of a skeptic, if we're considering buying it now at this board, I think it would be appropriate to add this amendment.
Thank you. Other discussion about this amendment? I have a question, and that would be, so we know that the current owners, the Met Council, it is surplus land. I mean, so what's different about this versus potentially the HICRA land at some point? I guess this is a more of an amenity zone, I get that. But what's special about this particular piece of land versus other lands along the corridor, maybe adjacent to already identified amenity zones or parklands?
Chair Bennett, the HICRA continues to want to be the underlying landowner for the rest of the corridor because of that transit potential. I think if they reach a period where they don't need to have that transit potential in the future, that might be a later conversation with, but the Met Council piece is kind of one of the few pieces, and it's a substantial-ish size, and we just wanted to bring it to your attention for consideration.
Okay. Oh, Commissioner Alper?
Yes, and I just wanted to add, I don't think that this land, this parcel, is buildable, just based on its location. So it's not like the alternative is, we could build housing, we could have a business there. It's that it's either open space under the Met Council or it's open space under us. And I would add there's some great cherry trees there.
Awesome. Well, I'd like to take the motion to add this amendment to the resolution to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That amendment is now added to the resolution. I think I'd like to, before going to Commissioner Schaefer, Commissioner Menz, who's not on this committee but has been really patient, would like to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, Chair Benny. I'm wondering if you have any idea what the public restroom situation is on that amenity. I see that adding restrooms was one of the amendments, but I know I've been along that stretch. Do we have any public restrooms? Does the city provide any is there anywhere for people to pee along that route?
Commissioner Menz, Chair Bene, the Midtown Greenway Regional Trail Boundary doesn't have any restrooms presently, and we aren't currently proposing any within the regional trail boundary. However, there are some park areas along the trail boundary that are where it's anticipated that there may be some restrooms incorporated in the future. CPRO site, for example, may have a portable restroom added to the park area at some point. There's also at the access by Lake of the Isles, there's a trail access point, and there's a portable restroom that exists there. So those are two spots that off the top of my head, I know where there are some restrooms that are in some park adjacent areas. There's also Brackett Field Park on the eastern end, and that has a full recreation center. So in terms of how that may fit into this trail plan, in terms of the wayfinding, when that gets implemented, that may be an opportunity for us to be able to have some signage, but we haven't presently put anything in terms of physical infrastructure into the plan.
And okay, and the city has never put public restroom, like any BIFs or anything like that down there?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Thank you. I just kind of wanted to get, I mean, it's a really difficult stretch along there. And I mean, if we are able to sort of provide some sort of permanent BIF with a nice place to put community stuff, that would be a nice place to put that and put that into the plan.
We do have another public hearing to open, but I think Commissioner Schaefer, if you want to go ahead and.
Sure, I just wanted to make one other comment about jurisdiction with the wayfinding. If we could have points in the trail plan where it's very clear to the public whose jurisdiction is what. For future commissioners, that would be very helpful to, if the trash is overflowing, they need to call, you know, whomever is in charge of the trash, or they have a complaint on the trail, just to really designate that somehow in the wayfinding for everybody's sanity. And then, yes, I would like to move Amendment H, which was the suggestion to add warming shelters to the plan and revise the text to remove from the list of possible low-cost amenities the warming shelter. And the reason, I guess, and I would like to do that, is just because of what we heard around safety concerns on the Greenway and some of the issues that we've had in Elliott Park, et cetera, around bus shelters. And I think that it would be maybe create an issue of potentially more supervision that needs to happen in that trench. So I would like to move amendment number H.
Is there some discussion on that amendment?
Point of clarification, are you wanting to move it so that we will eliminate it?
Correct.
Okay, for future consideration as well.
So it would be off, it would be taken off the low-cost amenity list.
Got it. That makes sense.
I look at the first bullet there, revised text to remove from the list.
Yep.
Shelters. Okay, is there discussion from the group on this item? We do have I'm not seeing some, so while you're thinking, I'm going to go ahead and actually open the final public hearing. I'd like to open the public, I won't read the rules, open the public hearing for the final concept plan for Elliott Park. We have one speaker, Barb Hickness. Barb Lickness. Can you come speak on the topic of Elliott Park final concept plan?
Okay. Well, I've been here before. And my name is Barb Lickness, and I am 71 years old, and I grew up as a park kid in Minneapolis. I grew up on Lake Nokomis, up the hill from the little beach. Fast forward to my life when I landed in the Whittier neighborhood And the park in Whittier in the early 90s was the worst park in Minneapolis. And the neighbors organized, and we worked with park planners, and we worked with the park director, and we cleaned up the park, and we came up with a plan, and in the end, we built the first school park project in the city of Minneapolis, which was a model for other projects. Fast forward, that got me a job with a neighborhood revitalization program. I worked with 33 neighborhoods in the renovation of, I can't even tell you how many parks. Commissioner Forney knows me, Commissioner Bangor knows me, Commissioner Rice knows me. It was an honorable experience to protect the parks, renovate the parks. I retired, went away, never to come back. I had a nice little retirement life. Then I moved to Elliott Park and got woke up and found out Elliott Park, my favorite little park, because I worked in that neighborhood for 20 years, was now the second worst park in Minneapolis. So I'm thinking, I did this 30 years ago in Whittier. So I decided I wasn't going to sit on my laurels, and I got active, and we worked, and I'm going to tell you a shout out to the park police. When we complained, and Commissioner Schaefer was there, and she knows how mad I was, and I can get mad, that those police were on it the next day. From then on, I mean, they did their job. They absolutely did their job. And then we got to work with the park planners and come up with this design and the outreach that these people did. They came into our building. Becca sat, well, I'll talk about, Becca is the park director at Elliott Park. She sat with the people in our building. Michael sat with the people in our building. His staff sat with the people in our building. They came in our building twice and did a presentation. They did so much outreach to the Elliott Park neighborhood. And the plan that we came up with is spectacular, and I just want to give credit where credit is due. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming here to give us your comments. With that, I'll close the public hearing for the final concept plan for Elliott Park, and we'll go back to resolution, hold on here, 2024-224. We right now had a proper motion to discuss an amendment by Commissioner Schaefer. Is there any discussion? Any more discussion? Any comments? Why don't we go ahead and take that to a vote? All those in favor of the motion by Commissioner Schaefer to amend the resolution, please say aye.
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 Opposed? That amendment is added to the resolution as well. Back to the main motion, Commissioner Olson.
Well, while we're adding amendments, I do, the two that stood out, and I know, it could be difficult with plumbing and whatnot, but I do think, a restroom along there, or a biff or whatever, some way so that folks can relieve themselves would be good. And I also think water fountains would be really wise, because I think two of those can be very limiting for lots of folks who kind of struggle, or who are just human, frankly. And I voted with the warming shelter because, I kind of agree with some of the logic there. And I think with bathrooms, I think there are ways with certain techniques that we could potentially implement. I think along, the bidet Mexica refectory, I think we saw has been kind of effective use of bathrooms there, or if it is simply a BIF service, could be really prized and appreciated. And I think it's something that I would appreciate to have in the plan to consider as we move forward, because everyone needs water and everyone needs to go to the bathroom. So I'll start off by moving Amendment D to add drinking fountains.
Commissioner Olson, might I make a clarification
Okay.
on that one? If you move the potential amendment D, that would be to remove
Oh, to remove them.
drinking fountains from the low-cost amenities.
I will not do that. I'm
It
not
didn't
doing that.
seem like that's what you
Hell
wanted,
no.
so.
Yeah.
Well, so and then at the bathroom one, would that be doing the same thing?
No,
public comment?
that is not on the list right now. So
That's
you
not on
would
the
be
list right now.
adding it to the list.
Okay, sorry, you know.
Yeah, and
bear with
actually, I
me.
don't know, I don't think your presentation's still up, but I was gonna make the same statement because you had the list of things that were included. If you could bring that list back up, that are considered low-cost amenities right now, sort of basic to the original, the plan, the draft plan now. Yep.
Okay, so if I move the restrooms, Amendment O, are BIFs included within that, or is restrooms, or is this fully plumbed, built-out structures?
Commissioner Olson, Chair Bene, I think
All of
with the resolution language for 2023-127, my understanding from the language that you all had previously adopted, permanent restrooms was considered a high-cost amenity. So
Okay.
I think if you were to want to advance this one, you'd maybe need to modify the language to clarify if you're talking permanent or portable restrooms.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, so if it would be a lower cost version of a restroom. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll move, sorry, everyone, Amendment O.
And thank you, Commissioner Olson. Can you say then what it is you're moving on O specifically?
Oh, so, to add to portable restrooms, to add list of possible, revised text to add list of possible low-cost amenities, right? So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome, I love that.
That sounds like what I want, what I'm saying, that's what I want to do, okay.
I love
I'm doing
it.
the top one.
Okay, love it. Adding portable restrooms has now been moved for a possible amendment to the resolution. Is there discussion about that item? Commissioner Menz.
Thank you. I'm not on this committee. I appreciate you allowing my input. I would like to maybe ask Commissioner Olson to add portable restrooms with permanent shelter on that amenity. I think that if we're thinking about this space, we don't want freestanding BIFs there. We want the enclosure, yes. So maybe could you amend your amendment to include with permanent shelter around the BIF?
Before we do that, is that necessary? Is that getting too down in the weeds of design? Would that be?
Commissioner Bene, I wouldn't say that would be necessary for this.
Okay. It's because it's a practice right now for some BIF locations to have enclosures just so they don't get knocked over and all of that, right? And it's kind of a decision, kind of case by case? Or is it a plan, long-range plan item?
Commissioner Abene, in terms of design for the portable restroom areas, like exactly what the configuration would be kind of later down the line. In terms of the regional funding, since we are still under the capital infrastructure piece, that would be the portable screen portion of the restroom.
Okay,
So-
yeah. I think that's okay, Commissioner Menz. I think it would be, I think if this board was to approve anything like that, we'd be looking for the screening and the enclosures just for the reasons that you were talking about. So to not go forward with that amendment, to the amendment?
I mean, I'm not on this committee, so, it's up to Commissioner Olson to decide what he wants to do. I don't necessarily think it's guaranteed that we're gonna get the shelter without putting that level of detail in this amendment.
I think I do feel confident that that would be a consideration in the regional plan moving forward.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that these are all things that would be on the list, but they're still sort of like, would have to happen, am I correct? Like they're on the list, but the details would still have to be hashed out?
Yes,
Is
it still has to be
correct? Okay,
designed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we have a motion before us to, the Olson amendment. There's no other lights. Any further discussion? No. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving the amendment by Commissioner Olson, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That amendment is also added. So now let's go back to the main motion, the resolution. Is there more discussion on the resolution as now amended by 3 commissioners? Look at that. I have a clarifying question. There will also, so this is coming out of a very chaotic committee, but there will be some opportunity to also add additional amendments as this goes to the full board in a couple of weeks, I assume?
That is my understanding, yes.
Yep. Also, I have to also point out, I really need to point out the fact that there was a lot of public comment here, not a lot of comment tonight, but the commenters talked about the public engagement process from the organization. Well done, really. That's a lot of work. So it makes me feel really good approving this because I feel these plans you really did a lot of work engaging, so thank you. So, okay, with that, I would like to take this to a vote. Let me just make sure I've got the right one here. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-224 as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes. We have one more resolution to move. Would somebody please move resolution item B3, 153?
I will move Resolution 2024-226, resolution approving the final concept plan for the east side of Elliott Park.
Is there any discussion, any comments? Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes, just a couple high level. Recently on 28th Street Tot Lot, we had installed the walkways that are the glowing walkways. And in stopping by there, I had difficulty really seeing it glow at night because of the streetlights. And in the designs that are shown in the plan, it really does look like it's a dark, dark area. And with all of the lighting that we're adding in this space, and I think actually the request that we heard about bird-friendly lighting, et cetera, I would encourage, I'm not gonna make an amendment at this point, but I would really encourage the planners, even though it's a small amount of money, to do that work. I'm not sure it's really, I would like to have staff look at the 28th Street lot and see how that performs with the street lighting. Because if there's no impact, then it's probably not worth it to do it here either, even if it's a minimal cost, in deference to some of the other comments that we've heard. And then can you also clarify for me, was the pedestrian lighting gonna be on all the paths? And did they all have the music function?
Commissioner Schaefer, could you repeat the last little part? I missed that.
If all the lights were gonna be on all of the paths in the park, or if it was just a few, and then if they all had the piping music option?
Gotcha. Commissioner Schaefer, currently we are in concept phase and don't have a complete lighting plan yet.
Okay.
We would, as we move forward with the design, we would look into where are the safe paths and where we need appropriate lighting. As far as the music option, again, we would kind of look towards an AV specialist to see where that makes the most sense and how we, I guess, organize and program the park to best suit all those residents.
Yep. Great, thank you. I'm just checking over my list here. And can you remind me the material on the playground?
Commissioner Schaefer, as far as the material, I think you're talking about the surface,
Yes,
playground surface. We haven't finalized that either, but I could see some sort of solid or poured-in-place surface or even artificial turf. We do know there's some safety challenges with needles, so we would want appropriate surface to minimize that as much as possible.
Okay, I think there are some concerns maybe around artificial turf and, things like that. So maybe we can just continue to be informed about that. I know we're approving a final design here, but I think that that's something that the community would care about. So that would be my only thing. And then did you mention tree loss to the group? Maybe I didn't hear it.
Commissioner Schaefer, I haven't really got into the details of the tree loss at this presentation. We have worked with forestry and actually walked the site with our forest department. We looked at the high priority trees and how do we minimize tree loss as much as possible. The current park has some amazing hackberry trees, and we understand the importance of these trees with the community, and our design actually carves around them. We would integrate these hackberry trees within the design. The current proposed design does lose several trees, and most of those trees that would be lost are some ornamental trees that are next to the rec center that actually block visibility into the park from the rec center. Outside of that, there's several trees that would be lost due to the new connections on the berms that are currently there when we add access points and visibility within the park too.
Great. And I just also want to just point out that we are adding a parking lot to this park, which it's just something to be aware of. I think it's a needed thing, but typically we're trying to reduce our parking footprint. But I just want to tell you thank you. Thank you for all the work. I have seen you and Emma in action, and all the words are really spoken from the heart, that I really appreciate all the effort, and everybody's voice has been heard. And your sensitivity to the community, as we've already heard tonight, is really something the commissioners really appreciate, because it makes this whole process so much smoother and so much more celebratory when we come to this point. So thank you for all your efforts, and thank you for joining the MPRB team.
Thank you.
Awesome. Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, well, just, I was kind of going back and forth on asking questions around lighting. And yeah, I do think it is really important that, whatever lighting we have, we do ensure that it's the most effective. But I do know from kind of research that I've done in the past that at least pedestrian level lighting is far less harmful for birds and our avian friends. So, implementing things on lighting on that level, I think, is the best way to approach it. And if we can make it so that it's still robust and makes our spaces safer, I mean, especially when things get so dark so early, and so people can still activate those spaces is really important. I mean, I would almost love if we could have like a system-wide lighting master plan and really look at it. I've been thinking about this for a few months because it started to get dark. I was playing basketball at Painter Park, and all the lights were on, like huge overhead lights, like field lights, and they were on a field that no one was using, the packed skate park, the packed basketball court, not lit at all. And so I think we have a lot of opportunities throughout our whole system to kind of look at how we're currently lighting, currently making poor use of lighting, poor use of activating those spaces. And I mean, just lights are just so important for safety, and particularly in the winter, half of the year we have here, we lose, 80% of our possible use of our park space. So it could be something, a major project, a legacy project in the future to consider. But those were kind of my thoughts. But I'm really happy to see kind of experimental pedestrian level lighting. I think it's the future, so.
All right, questions, other questions? Okay. Seeing no more questions, let's go ahead and move this resolution to a vote. All those in favor of Resolution 2024-226, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That resolution passes, and I think that I did it all. So with that, I'll adjourn the Planning Committee.